October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. If you know someone who has breast cancer or you've had breast cancer, maybe consider donating this month to help research to make all our lives a bit better. Any of us are suffering with breast cancer. I have talked about my cancer journey in the past, but for those of you who may be new or just visiting today, I'm going to tell the story again, not for any reason except to explain to you how research has changed over the years and how we've been the recipients of all that research. Hi, I'm Denise, and this is Travels in My Chair, and thanks so much for joining me today. We'll talk about breast cancer and what's new going down the pike for research. First of all, I did a pretty stupid thing back in 2005. But in the end, that stupid thing actually paid off, so I'll explain, okay? So in 2005, I was driving home from work, and a little Jack Russell Terrier escaped from the boarding kennel on the highway, and the vehicle in front of me slowed to a stop to grab this little dog before it got hit. I slowed my vehicle down and kind of turned my wheels to go slowly around it because there was no oncoming traffic coming. And all of a sudden, wham, I got rear-ended. And I was lucky. My car was totaled, but the airbag didn't go off, but the force of being thrown against the seatbelt bruised my whole chest area. It took me to the hospital, checked me out. I was miraculously okay, didn't have any neck problems or anything like that. But this chest area was pretty bruised. And they said, you know, that's going to be like that for probably a couple of weeks. After a couple of weeks, I was doing a breast exam and I felt a lump. And I went, oh no. But truth, okay? For the past year, I had been planning a major month-long holiday with my husband and my daughter and her boyfriend. And we were going to Paris, we were going to Italy, England. It was a major holiday. And it was a long time in the planning because I'm in a wheelchair, so everything had to be accessible. Even though we do home exchanges, usually it was a long slog to get that trip organized. And we were going in September of 2006. And it took a whole year to plan that trip, over a year. I didn't want to give up that trip. A couple of weeks after I discovered the lump, I went back and did another no lump. And so I thought, oh, you know what? That was probably from the accident. Just because I had read that it's not uncommon for breast cancer tumors to show up after a traumatic event, such as a car accident or a real bump that brings that tumor more noticeable. Now, of course, in hindsight, I should have gone and got a mammogram, gone to see the doctor, but I didn't want to give up the trip. I know, it's so stupid, isn't it? Life, health, life, health. Anyway, we took the trip. The lump didn't come back, but while we were in Italy one night, and this was now 2006, and I felt, and this has happened a few times to me, where I just felt freezing cold. I was getting the flu. I felt so sick, and I ended up having to go to bed like at 6 o'clock at night and stay in bed all night, just shivering. And yet, we're on the Mediterranean and it was warm, you know. And that night, I don't know what made me feel my breast. Oh, there was a lump, and it was bigger. Oh, there was another one. I could feel it. And now I freaked out. And I told my husband, and he was super angry, as you can imagine, right? Why you didn't do anything about it, why you didn't do anything about it. When we got back from that trip, I went immediately to the doctor. She wanted me, she said, I can see orange peeling around your nipples, so I think it's pretty advanced. I think we should get a biopsy done right away. And I said, well, the problem is a year ago, I was chosen out of hundreds of applicants to represent MS Society in a special program that was being held for a week in Toronto. And I had to jump through a lot of hoops to get accepted. And it was a very intense week of work with psychologists, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, nutrition, you name it, neurologists. I was very lucky to have been chosen. I said, she said, okay, all right, that's November. Okay, the second you get back, you're going in for a biopsy. So I did. Came back, had my biopsy, and sure enough, I had 3B, HER positive, hormone breast cancer, and immediately got thrown into high gear. Now, the reason I explain about the delay of me saying that I found a lump will now become apparent. I go to see the oncologist, and she is one of the 4 doctors that's in charge of a study on a drug called letrozole, and it was still in clinical trials in Canada. Now, I don't know if it had already been approved in, Europe and other parts of the States, but it hadn't been approved in Canada. But it was showing miraculous help. It works reducing the estrogen in your body, because that was the estrogen that was fueling my cancer, which is for postmenopausal women. My doctor said to me, Denise, I think I'd like you on this drug, and I'd like you on this drug now. And I don't want you on a placebo. I want you to be taking it. Another thing I did wrong, it threw me immediately into menopause. I had hot flushes, my muscles ached, my joints ached. I was miserable, I was exhausted. I was quite the mess. I had read somewhere that evening and primrose was good for MS, and I found it really good for when I had my, when I was having my period and I was really low and down. Evening and primrose helped. So I started taking evening and primrose, and it leveled me off. I was talking to my girlfriend one day on the phone, and she said, what the hell are you doing? Are you nuts? You don't take anything without talking to your oncologist first. Nothing. You don't know what harm you could be doing. So I talked to my oncologist, and she said, sure enough, evening and primrose oil boosts your estrogen. So there I was taking lestrozole to lower it, and evening and primrose oil was then boosting it up. Learned a lesson. So that's a lesson. Always consult your doctor, okay? Then we went through the rigmarole of my oncologist went on a year sabbatical, or studies. She was doing studies, I think. And I got another doctor, and then they did a bone scan on me, and they discovered a hole in my sternum. So right away, they decided that the cancer had gone to my bone. So one of the things that was discovered when I was going through the hassle of, you've got a hole in your sternum, that means the radiation oncologist did not want to do radiation on the sternum. The medical oncologist did not want me to have chemotherapy. One did, and another one didn't. One wanted me to have surgery and have a mastectomy, and the other one said, why bother? In other words, I'm going to die, so why bother, right? But here's an interesting thing about letrozole. If in 2005, when I was in that car accident, I had gone and been diagnosed with breast cancer and gone to the cancer agency then, and they discovered the hole in my sternum, they would have sent me home and said, have a nice life. Or they might have done a mastectomy, but there would have been no other treatment, because once the cancer's gone into your bone, they figure 2 to 4 years of life. Letrozole hadn't even gone into trials then, and I would have not ever had an opportunity to go on letrozole. So in a weird way, me waiting that year, okay, take with it what you want. So back to my little saga. I'm sitting there going every few weeks to the oncologist's office, not getting any help because nobody wants to do anything with me. And finally, the talk came up again about a mastectomy, because the tumors were too big to have a lumpectomy, so it would be that. And I had questions. Do I have 1 breast removed? Do I have 2 breasts removed? What's my prognosis? And nobody could seem to answer me, and I was going in circles, and my blood pressure started climbing so high that at one point my doctor said, I'm putting you on some medication, because between the MS and the breast cancer, my God, Denise, you don't need to die of a stroke or a heart attack too. One night, I was on the phone with my girlfriend, and her husband had just gone through a really serious, intricate surgery for a cancerous tumor on his neck that was all entwined with nerves and arteries and stuff. She was talking to me, and we were talking about my cancer, and all of a sudden she's like, just a second, Peter's trying to ask me something. What? Peter, I'm on the phone with Denise. And you could hear her in the background, right? Just a second. Okay, Peter is giving me the name of his doctor. His doctor has since who is highly recommended, one of the best in the country, has been switched her specialty to breast cancer, and he wants you to see her. So next time I go to see my doctor, my oncologist was back, and I said to her, so you're thinking I should have a mastectomy? And she said, yeah, and we'll talk about whether radiation, there's a concern about this hole in your sternum because it's not spreading, and we're just not sure. And your markers seem okay, so we don't know what's going on. Went to see a surgeon, lovely. I call her the angel. Oh my God. She said, you can't have a lumpectomy. You could have reconstruction surgery, but I don't know if you want that. Denise, is pretty invasive, considering, how I was using my left arm as on my walker and stuff like that. But I was very stressed because I wasn't getting any answers. Meanwhile, tick, 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 time's going on. Then her nurse, who is her surgical nurse, could tell that something was going on with me. And when the doctor left the office, she said to me, explain to me what's going on with you. And I said, well, they can't decide whether I should have radiation, whether I should have chemo, whether I should have a mastectomy, or whether I should be just sent home to die. And frankly, it's got me freaked right out because I can't get any answers from anybody and nobody can seem to agree. She says, I tell you what, when you get home, put all your concerns in an email to me and I'll deal with it. You ever need any help, here's my number, you phone me this myself. I went, oh, thank you so much. I was so relieved. So I sent her an email. I was back with my surgeon, and she said, we've got it all sorted out. We're going to do a left breast mastectomy, check out some lymph nodes that could be compromised, and then heavy dose of radiation. Off we went again to England and Italy and for a month because the doctor said, I think it's slow enough growing that you can risk a holiday. And you know what? It's your life, Denise. Keeping in mind, right, that they still thought I was going to die because it was in my bones. So live your life and enjoy yourself. We got back from our trip. 2 days later, I was in the hospital having a mastectomy. There was 8 lymph nodes that were compromised that had to be removed. And my oncologist told me later, you do have cancer in your body. It's going to show up again one day. But hey, we don't know when. You're beating all the odds. We call you the miracle girl here, I went on with my life. Every 3 months, I'd go in for an appointment with my oncologist. She'd say, how are you feeling? Are you got any swollen joints? Check me out. I was fine. She just kind of always looked perplexed somehow. Like, what the hell? The years ticked on. We're at 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11. Kept wanting to take me off letrozole, and I wouldn't let her. I said, well, she said, the maximum you should be on it 5 years. I said, hey, it's working. Yeah, she said, it is, so, we'll keep you on it. But eventually, after I'd been on it 11 years, she said, I think we're going to take you off it. And then in 2017, she had a student doctor, and they were checking through all my files and my x-rays and everything. And remember, this lump kept showing up, right? This hole. Couldn't figure out why it hadn't spread, why it hadn't gone to other parts of my body. No more tumors anywhere. Apart from that, I seemed to be cancer-free. So finally she said, you know what? We think it might be a shadow. We think it may not be a hole in your sternum at all. We don't know for sure, but it should have changed, and it has not. It hasn't shrunk, it hasn't grown, it hasn't changed shape. Well, that's what we're thinking it probably is. I am letting you go. I don't need to see you anymore. 2017, I feel abandoned. I have to be honest, because I've always seemed to have a doctor, even though they weren't great at the beginning. Near the end, it was like I was always had one at my back, I was on nothing. And it felt wrong. It felt that I just had this niggle in me that by taking me off that drug, I was asking for trouble, and I have no proof. It just was a feeling I had inside me. So on and on I went, hit COVID, feeling fine, and my diabetes was acting up, and my MS was just sort of, and I was in the wheelchair all the time. My doctor said, you got to get some exercise because you're really seizing up. So I said, okay. So I started doing some exercise, and it was 2021, and I had a yoga strap, and I was doing leg stretches and, bebopping to my music and all. And all of a sudden I felt, and I didn't hear it outwardly, I heard inwardly, a pop. And immediately I went, uh-oh, this is not good. I immediately phoned my doctor and I said, could I please have complete blood work done, and I'd like to have a CT scan done of my pelvic area and chest. Why? He said. But he knows me well enough. He knows that I'm not a hypochondriac. He knows that if I'm asking those questions, I have a valid reason. I was sent for those tests, and sure enough, on my sacrum, I have a hard tumor and a soft tissue tumor. The doctor gets me in touch with the cancer agency, and I get a phone call from a lovely lady called Anna, who asked me an hour's worth of questions on the phone before she'll even let me see an oncologist. And then I realized that this oncologist was a geriatric oncologist. So the Hannah was saying, do you understand what's going on, Denise? We will not see you unless you have a current will and you have your end-of-life wishes taken care of. Whoa, heavy stuff, right? Anyway, went to see my new doctor. She's put me on a new drug. Guess what? Letrozole. You know, I wonder if that cancer would have come back if I'd stayed on letrozole. I'll never know. Palbociclib or Ibrance. She said the combination, and this Ibrance, another fairly new drug, was showing very good promise in conjunction with letrozole. 2 new drugs I've had in my course of just me in my treatment. Fast forward, 2024. I'm reading an article by CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And it's about a man who is diagnosed with breast cancer, which is pretty rare in a man, and is HR negative. And there's a new drug out. And I'm just going to read this drug to you. Capivasertib. I'm probably mispronouncing it. It's for HER2 cancer, for locally advanced cancer, so I guess that's stage 4. And for low secondary breast cancer. It was just approved in Canada in January of 2024. Now, before you guys jump and say, whoa, it costs $10,000 for a 28-day cycle. And it does not have a track record of curing your cancer. It gives you a few more months. And the reason I'm mentioning this to you is because this drug, which goes by the name of Truqap, keep an eye on it, because it's just the beginning. It's just on the market, so it may end up having positive effects, just like letrozole had way back in its day in 2006. Oh, and this drug will halt the progress of the cancer. It's not going to cure it, though, okay? And then there's a Swiss pharma company called Rocha, R-O-C-H-A, that just purchased a couple of startup companies, Chinese startup companies. They paid $850 million for them. And it's biotechnical called Regar Therapeutics. Keep an eye on that. They wouldn't have bought it if there wasn't something positive. And it may be a while before we hear any more. This is just a very recent acquisition. But like I was telling you earlier on, why you want to maybe put your donation money into cancer, breast cancer right now, is because this is the kind of stuff that's happening. There was a time, not that many years ago, when we would have just been given the death sentence and told to go home. You got breast cancer. They're pouring money into us. That's because we're moms and stuff, right? And we're important. I always say, we're moms, we're grandmothers, we're important. Yes, preserve our breasts. No, Anyway, I just wanted you to be filled in with life. Now, I am now, latest for me, they took me off the Ibrance and they took me off the Palbociclib because a couple of CT scans ago, they discovered 2 minute little tumors on my lungs, which was a shock, and one of my lymph nodes was changing shape. I am now on an oral chemotherapy pill, and they've had to make adjustments because I had a most terrible reaction. I had sores in my mouth for 2 weeks. I couldn't eat. I couldn't even drink water, and I was fading fast. I finally talked to my oncologist and said, you know what? You got to take me off this pill and I'll just die because I can't live like this. And she said, oh, hold it. No, you got way too much to live for, girl. You got, what, 10 grandkids? You got traveling to do, you've got things. YouTube channel, whatever. You're not going to die. We'll just make adjustments. So they did. And you know, you work closely with your oncologist. The adjustments were made. I didn't get the sores this last go. I got the diarrhea, but you know, whatever. I'd rather have that than sores in my mouth. This round, I'm just coming to the end of a cycle. Not bad. I had one day of that freezing cold, like I told you earlier, but not bad. I'm a lucky camper. I'm still here. I feel pretty good. I'm telling you all this, and I know I've repeated myself, and I understand if you watch me often that you're going, oh God, no, she's going on again about breast cancer. But for those of you who have never seen, I think it bears to note that there is hope at the end of that tunnel, okay? Don't give up until you have to. And when you have to, you'll know. Because I believe in living until I no longer can live. So thank you so much for joining me on my little Cancer Again journey. For any of you who are battling breast cancer, early on, late on, whatever, just really keep close notes, a journal, and keep in close contact with your doctor. Even if you think it's an insignificant thing, you must, because like with that little popping sound, I could have easily ignored it and that cancer would have spread. And as it was, they gave me heavy dose of radiation and bingo, those tumors are gone. Okay, so I've got tumors on my lungs, but yeah, whatever. Keep a stiff upper lip. Keep your chin up. Think positively. You're allowed to whine if you want. You are, because, you know, hell, it's your life, right? You're allowed to whine. Just don't make it your life. There's a lot more to you than breast cancer. Thanks again. We'll see you. I'm going to start working on my trees and I'm going to talk about them. Coming up video probably. See you in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.